Good morning, New Zealand. I'm Chandler Farmer, bringing you the World News broadcast. Our top story tonight revolves around the creation of the Trans-Pacific Economic Union, spearheaded by our glorious Prime Minister Holyoake of New Zealand. Indonesia, the Philippines, Taiwan, Japan, and Alaska have agreed to join the Union following a series of diplomatic summits held in Wellington. The United States has expressed mild concern at this development. However, the Western states appear to be acting favorably towards the new economic union. We now shift to the ongoing civil war in Australia between the Victorians and the Republicans. The New Zealand Armed Forces, after capturing Tasmania on behalf of the Victorians, are starting a spearhead into the west in order to relieve Adelaide of the Republican push towards the south. Victorians continue to move up along the northern coast, but encounter staunch resistance in their attempts to cut off the Republican advance in the south. Military advisors from New Zealand have been seen meeting with many commanders in the Victorian ranks, hopefully organizing a major offensive to beat back the Republican threat. Our last story comes from the newly established New Zealand Department of Sciences, who have discovered alarming data points across the Eurasian continent. According to their analysis, the radiation in East and South Asia has barely decayed from levels seen right after the nuclear war. The same can be said for the radiation in Europe, and there remains no scientific explanation for the persistent contamination. That's all for today, folks. I'm Chandler Farmer. Glory to New Zealand.
Okay, we're back at the Space Center, and as the Koha 8 rocket is ready on the launch pad, the New Zealand Space Administration has to select an astronaut for the mission. Through the most rigorous selection process available, we have selected Luna the space dog from the countryside of New Zealand for this mission. The objective for this mission is to reach a stable orbit with the dog in the capsule, collect science for a few hours, and then deorbit it into a safe landing.
It's on its own internal power now.
T-minus 10 seconds. Counting. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
And we have signal confirmation that the Koha 8 probe has reached orbit with the dog safe inside. And now we're going to waste a few hours collecting some science, and then return it hopefully safely back to the surface. During this time, our scientists have Luna doing a number of small, marginal tasks inside the capsule, including attempting to eat food and push a few rudimentary buttons. And so far her vital signs are normal. And the boosters have successfully deorbited the craft, and we're flipping it around into retrograde to hopefully survive re-entry with a slightly larger heat shield than we had with Rex's capsule, so her chances of survival are much higher. Luna is going under almost 14 G's of force as she re-enters the atmosphere. But Mission Control confirms that her trajectory has slowed down far enough, and the re-entry flames have subsided. So now all that remains is the parachutes to deploy correctly, and then she'll gently float down into the sea around wherever this is. I think we're above Australia, which is good because we have influence here to come retrieve the capsule. We have confirmation that Luna has gently splashed down in front of a beautiful sunset in the north of Australia. Luna is the first animal launched from New Zealand to return safely from orbit. And as Luna is recovered by the New Zealand Navy, we have recovered a wealth of new data, as well as a wealth of wealth from completing this contract, which we can put to good use, unlocking some of these new technologies. With 45 science, we can unlock 2 of these, I think, or some of the less expensive ones. Okay, we have decided to pick up some avionics upgrades, which will decrease the mass significantly of our crafts and their power consumption, and allow deep space avionics for some of our upcoming lunar probes, which should be launching relatively soon. And we picked up early flight control. It does give us an RCS upgrade, but mostly we're getting it to unlock the capsule's technology, which we will need to put the first New Zealander in space. So in the Mission Control Building, we have our Lunar Impactor contract with a little more than a year left on the deadline, which may be cutting it a bit close. But if we do this right, I don't think it'll be too much more difficult than our flyby. And once we complete it, we're going to net ourselves 15 more science, in addition to whatever we collect from the moon. So I'm going to go ahead and look at our available contracts and see what we can pick up. Funnily enough, I think this contract right here, we can definitely do. We had a lot of Delta V left on that second stage in our last rocket, so we can get the periapsis above 200,000 meters pretty easily. Advance payment of 150,000 plus 2 extra science in addition to whatever we collect from the biological sample. I'm gonna go ahead and accept that. I'm tempted to accept these because their deadlines are quite far away, but our pace of research I don't think is quite fast enough, though this is a very, very nice chunk of money. And you know what? I think our agency is going to take a risk here and grab the Mars flyby contract, because the duration is quite long, although that probably accounts for the time needed to transfer. We can get some bigger rockets out the door pretty soon, and especially with the avionics upgrade, we might be able to pull this off. So I'm going to go ahead and accept the Mars flyby contract. We now have over 500,000 in the bank. So we can see what we're going to spend that on. The New Zealand Space Administration would like to present the Graham 1 launch vehicle. By far the largest vessel that the New Zealand Space Administration has ever constructed. So advanced that these engines don't even exist yet, and we need to wait for the research to be completed. And on top of its first mission will be the Aule 6, the Lunar Impactor probe that we need to complete soon in order to fulfill that contract. This rocket packs enough Delta V to get the probe and a little bit extra to the moon, hopefully on an impact course, although there are some issues regarding communications and guidance, which is partially why this exceeds what we need by a little bit. Nevertheless, we don't actually own all the technology to build this, so we're actually going to start off with the Karere 1. Pardon my pronunciation, I don't speak Maori. But this means Messenger 1. This is going to be our first communications satellite, but I will say that in quotes because we don't have very many advanced dishes, and this probe's main function is to provide imaging data on all the different biomes from Earth, which should provide us a decent amount of science for the future missions. And this is going to be pretty cheap to build and not take a while, so we're going to go ahead and add this to our construction list. Just a quick update before we get onto the launch pad. Our Mission Control Center is currently being upgraded and is going to complete around the same time as the tech we need for the large rocket, which is very good timing on my part. Totally did that on purpose. Other than that, we have some new avionics and flight control in the works. Actually, I think I'm gonna dump a little bit more money into both the VAB and the R&D Center. We now have the Karere 1 probe on board an Iraqi 1 rocket on the launch pad at the New Zealand Space Center. Its main mission objective is to reach an orbit, establish communications, and send back data regarding imaging from all the different biomes on Earth.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4,
And we now have confirmation that the Guerrero 1 has reached a stable orbit around the Earth. And now we're going to activate the antenna and start imaging different areas on the surface of the Earth. Of particular interest is the heavily irradiated areas in Asia and Europe that scientists have yet to explain why the radiation is still present, but maybe some orbital imaging will shed light on some of the problem there. In any case, we'll get some signs from this, and maybe it will help with communications on our lunar impactor, if we're lucky. Doing the flight for that is quite complicated, so we'll just see where it goes. Anyway, we're just going to leave this in orbit, and it'll start collecting signs for us. While we get signs trickling in from that probe, and we have our new technologies unlocked with the new Gram 1 rocket currently under construction, we have that other orbital contract to complete, and this time we have selected Charlie the Space Monkey for this mission. He's going to go to orbit, complete a similar series of tests to what Luna did, and then hopefully return safely back to the surface of the Earth.
It's on its own internal power now.
T-minus 10 seconds. Counting. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
It looks like we have a major engine failure. We still have a chance at saving Charlie. So it looks like this mission was a failure, but Charlie is safe and sound with the parachutes active. As only a minor setback, we'll just have to try again later. I think there's still lots of time left on the contract, so we should be in the clear still. Charlie has safely touched down right next to the Space Center, and we're going to freshen him up and get him ready for the next flight in a couple months.